To think that we had government agents knocking on the door, going into the homes of Black women and being like, there better not be a man that lives here. We're just here to check to make sure. If you want this check, dad can't be home. Every other ill that Black America is facing today is because we've removed fathers from the home. So I'm like a big, I use my platform to talk about men a lot and the need for male leadership, everything that is so harmful, this, Me Too, false feminism, all of this crap. It's anti-man, and it's anti-man for a reason, because a society cannot survive without strong men. A household cannot survive without strong men. We need strong men to lead homes. And so the fracturing of the Black family, I think, was the test, like we were the mice in the experiment, like let's see how that goes. And now they're kind of doing that writ large. And I hate feminism so much, I can't even tell you, because what it's about is it's just an attack on men.
Hold on, you just said a lot, Candace. So let's talk about some of these things.
All right, guys, so we got to react to this interview between Charlamagne the God and Candace Owens on The Breakfast Club. And I was actually pleasantly surprised by how this interview went versus how this interview typically goes with Charlamagne the God and people that he disagrees with politically. He might actually be intimidated by Candace Owens, because you remember the interviews with Larry Elder and Vivek Ramaswamy, those interviews definitely were a lot more combative than this interview was. In this interview, Charlamagne actually lets Candace talk and to thoroughly explain herself without letting his Trump derangement get out of control. But, I personally think that Candace here does a pretty good job of basically answering Charlamagne the God's questions, especially when it comes to the issues in Black America and why she supports Trump. Okay, why is she conservative? What are her values? What are the things that she believes in? I think she does a pretty good job of articulating that to Charlamagne at his level, right? And level that he can understand. And I want to react to it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Noble Gold. Have you guys taken a good look at the banks lately? Now, on the surface, everything may seem fine, but there's a whole lot more going on underneath. It's like looking under the hood of a car and finding a mess of broken wires and parts. The parts are loans for homes, cars, and the credit cards that we use. They're all hitting record highs. It's really scary when you think about it. Why risk your money for a tiny 5% when things are so shaky? This is where Noble Gold can help. They're like that friend that knows all about how to keep money safe. They suggest gold and silver, oldies but goodies in the finance world. Plus, they've got a sweet deal, a 1/4 ounce gold standard coin this month if you qualify. That sounds pretty cool, right? If you're curious, just give them a call at 877-646-5347. That is 877-646-5347. And don't worry, it's just a chat, no pressure. They will help you figure out if gold and silver are right for you. Or you can visit noblegoldinvestments.com and take the first step towards a safer, more secure financial future. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment, and there's no guarantee of any kind.
The politicians, right? Whether it's Lyndon B. Johnson, Trump, Biden, I think people are able to ignore a lot of their BS as long as they can get something done.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like. So that's why I don't even like to talk about the person. I like to talk about the policy. So what is the difference between traditional conservatives and MAGA?
Yeah, so I want to answer this question, okay? Because Charlamagne has shown in the past that he claims he doesn't have a problem with traditional conservatives, but he has a problem with MAGA, okay? He thinks that MAGA is anti-Black, but I don't think he actually really understands what MAGA is, okay? Or, what traditional conservatism really is, because MAGA is mostly made of traditional conservatives, but traditional conservatives that are fed up with the BS of the establishment, okay? The conservative base as a whole, for the most part, is done with the establishment, okay? Mainly when it comes to sending money overseas to fund these wars and these foreign conflicts that, quite honestly, we really ain't got that much to do with, okay? Now, again, some people may say that, oh, we have interests here and there. Yeah, I get that. But people are sick and tired of being involved in everybody's conflicts. Also, on top of that, from a domestic perspective, when you talk about the economy and trade, MAGA is pro-fair trade, okay? Not necessarily free trade being the end-all, be-all, which is what Democrats and Republicans have both agreed on over the past 30 or 40 years or so. That has been responsible for destroying rural and middle America. Okay. It has been responsible for shipping good middle class paying jobs, mostly manufacturing jobs, overseas to China and these other places for cheap labor, okay, to mainly benefit corporations. And that kind of brings me to my overall point, is that MAGA likes capitalism, but we don't like crony capitalism, okay? That's why there's a lot of backlash against these companies that are looking to hire these illegal immigrants that have come into this country, okay, the asylum seekers. They're firing Americans and hiring illegals at lower wages, okay? That is crony capitalism, okay? We don't like that, right? That is the main difference between MAGA and what I would say the neocon establishment Republicans, okay? Because best believe the neocon establishment Republicans, they may come out here and virtue signal about the border, but they don't really want to close up the border, okay? Because they get their donations, their campaign funds from these same companies that benefit from illegal immigration. So again, the big difference when you talk about, you know, MAGA and traditional conservatives is not necessarily a difference between MAGA and traditional conservatives, because MAGA is mostly comprised of traditional conservatives. It's really what is the difference between MAGA and establishment Republicans, okay, / neocons. That's where you have the divide, okay? And the main divide has to do with foreign policy and trade. Now, from a social perspective, you know, the main difference is that you have some neocons, okay, like a Nikki Haley, they're embracing wokeness, right? Some of these more established Republicans, they're getting on board with wokeness. MAGA, not so much, okay? And that's probably why Charlamagne the God thinks MAGA is anti-black, okay? Because MAGA's not on board with the woke nonsense, okay? The buffoonery, okay? But the neocons are flirting with it, okay? Like the Mitt Romneys of the world, again, the Nikki Haley's of the world, they're flirting with the wokeness, okay? But MAGA's like, no, we're not on board with that. Okay, and I think that there's kind of like a hard line stance against it, because everybody can see the writing on the wall in regards to the results of wokeness and the type of policy solutions that come out of wokeness. I mean, look at what's happened to these inner liberal cities and crime. All of that is a result of wokeness, right? These soft on crime policies, well, it all comes from woke ideology. Okay, so, you know, that would have been my answer to the question, to simplify it for Charlamagne the God.
Well, I would say between the traditional conservatives and MAGA.
Yeah, like before what the Conservative Party was before MAGA and what it is now.
Yeah, so I think what you're describing is that there was this fracture in the conservative movement because people realized that when he was referring to the swamp, what he meant was it didn't actually matter if you were on the left or the right. They were all working together in D.C. and selling out all of America. I mean, there is no reason why you go to D.C. and become a multimillionaire. You're supposed to be there to serve the American people. You're there taking our tax dollars. So what was happening was these lobbying interests, like, you know, Big Pharma goes down and they lobby and they'll offer money to a candidate to go push a drug, like the COVID vaccine, or they'll lobby for war. It's like, you know, biggest lobby, of course, military industrial complex. So we're all suffering. You're going to work because these lobbyists are getting their incentives done by buying out these politicians. And so Trump kind of hit the scene as somebody who wasn't bought and paid for because he didn't need their money. He wasn't like a random congressman going to DC with no money. And he just started talking about the swamp. Like, it's not even Republican or Democrat. And I want people to wake up to that, because I'm not here like ride or die for Republicans. They all sell us out. Like, the stuff that they did during COVID is criminal. It's criminal. And
yeah, so I personally agree with Candace in the sense that, yeah, I'm not ride or die for Republicans either. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a registered Republican. I vote Republican. But at the same time, the main reason is because locally it matters more so than at the federal level. Okay, when you look at the difference between a Florida and a California, the difference is tremendous, right? There's a wide gap. But at the federal level, there really is no difference, or there's not that much of a difference. The difference is a kind of small between Democrats and Republicans, because they're basically on the same team, right? You got the neocons, and then you got the neoliberals for the most part. Now, the MAGA movement basically is the Tea Party 2.0, okay? It's more populist, okay? It's more hardline on certain issues. And it was born out of the fact that people can see the corruption in Washington, D.C., in the swamp, so to speak, okay? Nobody will ever forget Trump going on that debate stage in 2015, 2016, where he said out loud that, hey, the Iraq war was a disaster.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? Now, you can take it any way you want, and it took Jeb Bush, if you remember at the beginning of his announcement, when he announced for president, took him 5 days. He went back. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Took him 5 days before his people told him what to say, and he ultimately said it was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
I'm sick and tired of Barack Obama blaming my brother for all of the problems that he's had. And frankly, I could care less about the insults that Donald Trump gives to me. It's blood sport for him. He enjoys it, and I'm glad he's happy about it. But I am sick and tired of him going after my family. My dad is the greatest man alive in my mind. While Donald Trump was building a reality TV show, my brother was building a security apparatus to keep us safe, and I'm proud of what he did. And he's had the gall to go after
the World Trade
mother.
Center came
he's
down
had
during
the gall
your
to
brother's
go after
reign.
my
Remember
mother.
that.
There were no weapons of mass destruction, okay, that we were lied to about that war, which was unheard of, right? It was unheard of for a traditional conservative to criticize the U.S. military, right? Until Trump came out and said, yeah, that was wrong, okay? The war that we're fighting overseas, we're being scammed, right? I mean, essentially, these wars are designed to benefit corporate America and the military-industrial complex, which is just corporate America, okay? They're not designed to actually benefit the American people. We're not overseas fighting for freedom and democracy as much as we're fighting for our multinational corporate supremacy, right? Our globalist agenda, right? That's what we're actually really fighting for more so than anything, okay? And Trump was one of the first major Republican politicians to come out and to say that out loud, to make it okay to say that, hey, we should really think about how we spend our military money and what we're doing with our military when it comes to fighting these wars overseas. Because it ain't really about freedom anymore.
And
expound on that.
I mean, just the free handouts. First off, trillions of dollars. You're signing these omnibus bills. If you read into it, where that money is going, it's insane. It's literally going, to museums, boards of museums. They're quite literally money laundering is what's happening when they sign these bills. But they keep it so that the information level is so low for Americans that it's like, oh, COVID's so bad. Like, we're going to give you a check that's like, $300. This basically describes welfarism, right? Like, despite the fact that there's been trillions of dollars since the establishment of welfare, Black Americans are poorer today than we were before it. People don't know this, but during the time of Jim Crow, before welfare was established in the 1950s, Black Americans were actually outpacing white Americans in this country in terms of economic growth. And the reason for that was because our families were together.
Again, now a lot of people are going to take this clip of Candace Owens saying that and then try to say that, well, Candace is trying to say that Black people need to go back to segregation, right? But that's actually not her point. Her point is that when you talk about the growth of Black people, the independence of Black people, really, back then, Black people were growing and progressing at a much better rate. That doesn't mean that Black people were in a great place. It doesn't mean that it was great to be Black living back during that time. It's not what it means. It just means that Black people were actually making real progress back then, okay? It wasn't perfect. It wasn't amazing, but progress was being made. We were headed in the right direction because of the nuclear family structure being intact. Now, again, I'm saying this because I see a lot of people that take this type of stuff out of context and try to pretend that what they're saying is that, well, Black people were better off back then, okay? To try to make some type of point, okay, that really is irrelevant to what Candace Owens is actually really saying, or the person that making this point is saying. The whole point of saying that is to say that, well, we were actually progressing in the right direction. I can't say that today, right? I can't say that Black America is going in the right direction today. That is what she's saying here.
We had good values. The government only wants to give you the bare minimum. But where's the rest of the money? Where is it going? They sign these bills making you think that this money is going to you. It's not. They are stealing from the American people. And it's you look at your congressman, whoever it is that you guys sent down to DC, and you realize that they're all just puppets. I feel like we're watching a performance, and who can say the most outrageous thing. The Republicans don't want to sign this because they want, slavery and they want you back in change. The Democrats don't want to sign this because they want grandma to die. Whatever it is, you're watching to me, it's a play.
That's why I don't think. That's why I think if you're black, you shouldn't be beholden to any political party, Democrat or Republican.
Right. I mean, I think that any concept of saying that I am a Republican forever, a Democrat forever, is a nonsense. You should always look at the candidates that are running, and any person that is running saying that they want to grow government is your enemy.
Why do you think? Well, I personally think that there's nothing wrong with people saying that, hey, from an ideological perspective, I'm conservative, therefore I'm going to vote for Republicans. Or I'm ideologically liberal, therefore I'm going to vote for Democrats. Because in both parties, you're going to have that base, that core base of people that are going to support the party no matter what. I don't think that's necessarily the problem with political parties as much as when you look at the fact that Democrats and Republicans have essentially rigged the system so that no other party can develop that type of traction that they have. Okay, it is a kind of a monopoly, okay, or duopoly on the marketplace of political parties that they've established. But when you look more specifically at Black America, the problem with Black America is the fact that we overwhelmingly vote for Democrats, right? And no other racial demographic group does that. They don't vote like that. Okay. For Charlamagne the God to sit up here and to say that, well, I don't think that, black people should be attached to any political party, while at the same time, this dude clearly and obviously is attached at the hip to Democrats. He claims he's independent, but he's really just a progressive. He ain't gonna vote Green Party, right? He ain't gonna vote Green Party, but you do have some people on the right that will vote Libertarian, right? They will say, you know what? I don't like Republicans, conservatives. I'm gonna vote Libertarian. I think that Charlamagne the God is a staunch Democrat, okay? Again, the problem overall is that there's no other racial demographic group that votes the same way that black people vote. So that makes black people politically irrelevant. And that's what kind of blows my mind about these people that want to come out here and demand handouts from both parties. Oh, what are you going to do for black people to get our vote? Well, what do you mean what I'm going to do for black people to get your vote? Democrats already have your vote, right? They don't have to do anything for you, okay? That's why they always give black people the okie doke. Because black people vote for them at a 90% clip. If black people voted for, Democrats at a 50% clip, then Democrats would actually have to do some of the things that they promised. Now, some of these things will be bad. I don't think some of these things will be good. What a lot of these people want Democrats to do, like a anti-black hate crime bill, basically an anti-free speech bill, right? I don't think that that's going to help black people. I don't think that's good for this country. But I'm just saying, the main problem is the fact that you have black people overwhelmingly supporting one party, okay?
I think people give you a lot of backlash for questioning people and having questions. I see all the time with Charlamagne, if we question something that Kamala Harris did, or question something that Joe Biden did, or question somebody that's Democrat did, why do you think our people have so much backlash when you ask so many questions?
Well, because I think that they don't realize that they've been manipulated against their own interests. And a lot of it is, when you start telling the truth, you become a problem to the establishment, right? So if you're the military industrial complex and you want people to just kind of sleepwalk into another war, and I'm sitting here telling you that, Pentagon just can't keep finding the trillions of dollars that they send overseas. They've got this budget and they're sending all this money to Ukraine, and then they say, oh, we don't know where all the money went. It's being laundered and it's being sent back to a very small group of powerful people. And so when you have someone like me who's cutting through all of the emotional arguments, you have to turn that person into persona non grata, right? And what better way to do it than to have their own community attacking them and saying that they're, pro-white or anti-black. I mean, it's a nonsense things that they say about me. If you listen to what I'm actually saying, I'm sitting here providing a blueprint for Black Americans to get ahead, because it's time, okay? It's time. We've been doing this for a very long time in this country. Black America, wake up, okay? They don't like you. They don't like us, okay? There's
so you're not anti-black.
America has,
yes, government,
America.
Yeah, like the government, the American government. Why would you think the American government wants to help you? Well, at what point in history has that proven to be right? And I'll challenge that, and I'll make it wider to all Americans. When has it ever been the circumstance that you felt that the government really just was out for your own best interests?
Now, this is an interesting point that Candace is making, specifically when you talk about black people and the woke revolutionaries, especially the ones that are demanding a reparations check, right? They are one of the most confused groups of individuals that I've ever seen in my life, because essentially They tell you that, hey, the white man is evil. The system is systemically racist. The white supremacists are trying to keep us down. But at the same time, they are hoping that the white supremacists, who apparently supposed to have their boot on the neck of Black America, is actually going to take the boot off the neck of Black America and to give them a handout, right? They're going to give them a reparations check. Again, if you ever listen to some of these so-called pro-Black people out here, all they do is talk about how anti-Black everything is in America. But yet they are supposed to be fighting for reparations, right? They're telling their audience that, well, we're going to get reparations. The white man, right? The white supremacists, the people that are so anti-Black are going to give you a check. They're going to do right by you. And like logically, it just doesn't make any sense, right? That's why I say these individuals confuse me, because these are the same individuals that will say, hey, we want to be left alone. Okay. We want white America to leave us alone. But then when white people say, okay, well, you can be by yourself, we don't really want to be around you, they boo-hoo whine and cry. And they cry racism. Again, it's just amazing how that works. But again, Candace is bringing up a good point, and this is a question that I always ask. Is it like, why do you think that the people that you claim that hate you are actually going to do good by you, right? That's what I really don't understand. That's what I really don't get. The slave master is not going to voluntarily let you go. This is why we fought a whole, war, right? In order to force the South to give up slavery. This is why we had to fight a war over it, because nobody's going to voluntarily give that up. That's what, again, blows my mind about the psychology of the people with their hands out begging a white man for a reparations check, while at the same time claiming that the white man is so evil and hates Black people so much, but yet is begging a white man for a check, right? It doesn't make sense, okay? Logically speaking, it just doesn't make sense.
Interests. Think of them as a corporation. They want to grow themselves. They want new departments, bigger departments, larger budgets, like any other corporation would want. And they never want to leave DC because we don't have term limits, which we should have, right? If we had term limits and said you can only serve for 4 years, well, then guess what they would be doing for those 4 years? Trying to shrink government, because they'd have to come back out and be us, right? Mm-hmm. When you look at the way that your tax dollars are being spent, you should be outraged. You should be angry, but stop thinking that the enemy is, they constantly have us arguing against each other, women versus men, Black versus white, It's a nonsense. The reason why they want us constantly warring is because it distracts from all of us coming together and taking a look at who the real criminals are. And the real criminals are this small group, this small cadre of powerful people that I think we're virtually all still on a plantation. They just made it look nice. You got a nice chair. We got nice chairs here. But I think we're all still on a plantation.
Shut up. It's for the baby shower. So is this the reason why I haven't really heard you pushing people to vote for any particular candidate this go around?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very clear about the fact I let everything play out, but I absolutely love Vivek Ramaswamy. Obviously, he's not running anymore. But his ideas and his laser sharp focus on what the actual issues were, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I'm obviously voting for Trump. We were all doing better under Trump. It's that simple. I don't care what else they have to say, the libels, the smears. I get it. You do it to me. So I just don't even pay attention. I actually find it to be quite boring now,
What economically, what were the reasons? Because, you said that, you didn't like that Republicans were giving out money during 2020.
Both. They were just giving out money during COVID. It was crazy.
But that's what a lot of people loved. They loved the stimulus checks. They loved the PPP. So when you say you were doing better under Trump, that's what people point to. But look at the circumstances it took for that to happen. We don't want to have to go through another pandemic.
No.
Well, the people that saying that we were better under Trump and they're referencing the pandemic are stupid, right? They're just not educated, right? They are Democrat Party voters, right? The people that say we're doing better under Trump, they don't reference the pandemic. What they reference is basically before the pandemic, right? Where, we had sustainable GDP growth, we had record low inflation, affordable housing, low unemployment, lower income inequality. Okay, income inequality was going down. People were getting up off the system, right? Less people were on food stamps. This was all accomplishments of the Trump administration his first 3 years in the Trump economy. That is one of the greatest economies that we've ever had, right? So again, ignorant people like Charlamagne the God and others may reference a stimulus check as to when Trump economy was doing so great, but that's actually not when any educated person, right, refers to the Trump economy. They refer to basically 2017 to 2019, really.
Get that money.
Yeah, but the point is that should provide to you a lesson how the government works, because people weren't even thinking ahead. You're like, yeah, I'm getting this free check, so I'm not going to work. Again, incentivizing poor behavior. What ended up happening was a lot of the mom and pop stores closed. Right, a lot of businesses actually had to fold because they couldn't sustain it under the economic environment. They just couldn't thrive. Employees did not want to go to work. It was crazy. And so what ends up happening is the individuals get weaker and the corporations got bigger, right? Only the corporations could have survived in that environment, which is what unfortunately ended up happening. And then we put our own selves on the hook to be taxed into oblivion, to keep paying into this ridiculous thing that we agreed to pay into. It would have been much better for us to instead say, I'm happy to work. I don't want your small check. I want you to stop taking tax dollars from me. Shrink government, don't make it bigger. That always has to be the economic narrative. If you want to make government bigger, you are taking from me. Government does not make money. We make money, right? Government can only take money. So when you're advocating for more government solutions, you are literally advocating for the government to come into your check and take more money from you.
Lord, that makes sense. But how were people better under Trump, though? Like what are some things that you can point to?
Well, I mean, like I said, common sense. Everybody was living better under Trump, but just in terms of the environment for people that were entrepreneurial, definitively one of the first things he did was he started slashing regulations, slashing these barriers that prevent people who want to go into business from starting a business, because they learned that there's all of these government agencies that are, you got to get this into place, you got to get this in place, you have to get, this license. That's government agencies that are actually standing between you and starting a company. And so on his very first day, he was just like cutting regulations left and right, saying throw this one out, throw this one out, throw this one out, which freed up the markets. At the end of the day, what I am is I'm a free market capitalist. Free the markets, allow people to compete fairly, stop allowing the government to stop people or de-incentivize them from creating new jobs. I'll give you an example. A cousin of mine wanted to start a food truck. Great, awesome, would love for you to do that. And he looked into like how many certifications and barriers there were before he could actually start the food truck. That is the government growing powerful. Essentially, you have to have money or you have to know somebody to play the game for you to be able to start from nothing and make something of yourself. Economic mobility is really what it's about. So, I mean, that was one of the things that I loved the most about Trump, is that he was very sensible. He has a very good business head. He understands the business environment, and every person should want to, should be aspiring not to work for a bunch of people that don't have your best interests, but to be able. I
agree with that, but so many of his businesses have failed, though.
Yeah, but even failing is a part of the things that I've tried to do have failed, right? And I don't ever let that be a barrier. Like, I think that there's always this psychological mindset of people that are fearful to fail. That's the best way for things to happen, because you learn so much in failure. And people always want to point to and mock somebody for failing. Like, oh, she tried to do this and then she failed. Well, at least she tried, right? What are you doing?
And everybody has losses.
And you learn from them. You grow from those losses, and that's another, that's the thing that really bothers me too, is like that psychological conditioning of like, well, what's the point in trying because you might fail? It's like, no, you should try and you might fail. And then you'll learn. And the next time you try, you might make something of yourself.
We see that in the cannabis industry.
Well, yeah, I mean, Charlamagne, I'm not sure if he's a real entrepreneur, but he probably doesn't understand that. Okay, anybody that criticizes somebody's business for failing, they don't really understand business. Okay, you're gonna start 10 businesses before you get one successful one, right? It's really about getting that one successful one and then growing from there. But to answer Charlamagne the God's question, I think I would have said, in response to, hey, Black unemployment at the time was historically low. Okay, you had an increase in Black home ownership rates, which is something that, people like him claim they care about when you talk about building generational wealth. Black poverty also declined as well, too. Obviously, you have HBCU funding, and you have opportunity zones, which overwhelmingly have kind of benefited so-called minority neighborhoods with private investments there as well too, capital allocation there. But it's not just about Black America, right? What you can see in the Trump administration is the point that I try to make all the time to anybody thinking about like, well, what is this political party doing for my race, right? Well, it's not about your race. It's about the country as a whole, okay? Black America was doing well under Trump because the whole country was doing well, okay? If America is not doing well, Black people aren't going to be doing well overall, okay? But if America is doing well, then Black people are probably going to be doing pretty well too, okay? And that is the point. The Trump economy benefited everybody, including Black America, And again, I think that's one of the main reasons from an economic perspective to vote for Trump, because we know that his policies were successful. And what Candace Owens also should have pointed out during that exchange is that the money that was flowing into the economy as a result of the pandemic actually was a left-leaning economic policy. Okay, it is something that they implemented in response to the pandemic, and that is why we're paying for it now with inflation. So what you can see when you use left-wing economics, well, let's just, keep printing money. Let's pour trillions of dollars into the economy to stimulate it. That has an actual cost, okay? That has a cost in the form of inflation. That's why we're seeing that today, and Democrats doubled and tripled down on that. They doubled and tripled down on the lockdowns, on putting more money into the economy that didn't need it, instead of opening back up the economy and doing what we needed to do to get back to normalcy. When the data suggested that the pandemic was not as bad as we thought it would be, and that we need to get back to normal, they decided not to do that. They extended it for longer than it should have been, and they put more money into the economy than it needed. And again, that's the result of what we're experiencing today, which is the record high inflation. She should have made that point. But yeah, I mean, overall, okay, when people talk about the Trump economy, they're talking about before the pandemic. So with that being said, I hope that Charlamagne the God took away something from that. I'm not sure if he did, probably didn't. He still seems to be Trump deranged, hence the fact that he asked the question about Trump's businesses in response to, Candace Owens talking about his accomplishments with the economy and whatnot. Some of these people, again, they're just too far gone. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.